Have you ever stopped to think about the delicacy of our routine? That pleasant feeling that everything is in its right place, that tomorrow will be just a quiet extension of today? We cling to this predictability, don't we? We believe we are safe, protected by an invisible bubble of normality. That chaos, the unexpected, the terror, oh, that only happens in movies, in distant news, to other people. Never to us, never in our backyard. This is our greatest illusion and perhaps our greatest vulnerability. But what if I told you that sometimes life has a cruel way of reminding us that this bubble is fragile, that what seemed safe can become the stage for a nightmare, that the silence of the night or the familiarity of a screen can hide a threat you never imagined? Get ready, because today we are going to dive into stories that prove that fear doesn't choose a time or place. It just happens. And when it does, it changes everything, forever. Imagine yourself in a place where time seems to stand still. An abandoned industrial complex, shrouded in the darkness of night, where the only sound is the echo of your own footsteps and the whisper of the wind among the empty structures. It was in this setting that a man, a night security guard, spent his hours. A lonely, monotonous job, but one that he had somehow learned to appreciate. The peace, the silence, the routine of rounds under the moonlight. It was his bubble of normality, his comfort zone. He knew every corner of that factory, every shadow, every creak. Nothing surprised him. Until that night, a fault in the gate, an insignificant detail that opened a crack for the unexpected. First, cars that entered and left in a hurry. Teenagers looking for a refuge for their secret encounters. An inconvenience, nothing more. He, with his flashlight, was the guardian of local morality. The date scarer, a flash of light, and they would disappear like ghosts. A predictable routine, even fun in its simplicity. But then the car that didn't move arrived. The one that challenged his routine, his silent authority. He approached with the patience of someone who has seen it all, ready to give the usual warning. But the silence inside the vehicle was different. A heavy, dense silence that sent a chill down his spine. And when the beam of his flashlight finally revealed what was inside, the bubble of normality shattered. Two young people, motionless, with their eyes open to the void, victims of a brutal and incomprehensible violence. What he saw that night was not just a crime. It was the invasion of the purest horror into his life, a horror that refused to leave. An image that would haunt him forever, changing his perception of security, of peace, of everything. How do you get rid of an image that sticks to your soul? And what happens when the evil you thought was far away knocks on your door, or worse, invades your home, even if it's digital? The memory of that terrible night at the factory never left the security guard. It became a shadow in his mind, a constant reminder that evil is real and can appear out of nowhere. But evil, as we know, is not limited to dark alleys and abandoned places. It evolves, it adapts, and in the digital age, it has found new masks, new ways to invade our lives and turn our safe haven into a prison of fear. This is where Katie's story begins. A mother living her life, taking care of her daughter, finding comfort in her routine, until a simple notification on her cell phone shattered that peace into 1,000 pieces. It was a profile that seemed legitimate, of a girl from the same city, a potential connection, perhaps, and harmless curiosity. She replies with a simple, "Hi, do we know each other?" The answer comes quickly, but it's not a text, it's a voice note, a 1-minute audio that would change her life forever. Without thinking twice, she presses play, and what she hears is not a girl's voice. It's something cold, artificial, inhuman, an AI voice, basic and sinister, that calls her by name. Katie's blood runs cold. The feeling of security vanishes, replaced by a dread that consumes her completely. The voice says that it has been watching her for a long time and that it has decided that she and her daughter must die. The message goes on, with sick details of how their deaths would be, but what really terrifies her is what comes next. The voice describes her house, her daughter's name, the school she goes to, details that no one should know. The threat was no longer a distant fantasy. It was real, it was close, and it knew everything about her. Panic sets in. Who to turn to? The police? They would just file a report. She needed someone to make her feel safe. And that person was Joey, her ex-boyfriend, a man with whom she had a complicated relationship, but who, at that moment, was the only anchor in the storm. He arrives, comforts her, listens to the message, and anger and fear mix on his face. He convinces her to go to the police, to fight against this invisible threat, and so begins Katie's journey through a digital nightmare. The messages don't stop. New accounts, new threats, the same robotic voice. She follows the police's advice, saves everything, every message, every voice note, turning her cell phone into a file of her own torment. The stalker, realizing that he is no longer being heard, changes his tactics, calls from unknown numbers, the same voice now invading her calls. The fear becomes constant, a shadow that follows her every step. The stalker is no longer content with the digital world. He wants more. He wants her to know that he is close, close enough to touch. One night, the terror materializes, knocks on the door. Not normal knocks, they are blows. Violent, aggressive, meant to terrify. Katie, alone at home, locks herself in her room, her heart racing, the phone in her hand. She calls the police, her voice trembling, explaining that her stalker is there at her door. With each knock, the fear grows, and then silence. The police sirens cut through the night, a sound that should bring relief, but only confirms the reality of the danger. The police find no one, but the message has been delivered. She is no longer safe in her own home. Forced to move in with her mother, she tries to find some peace. But the stalker doesn't give up. Upon returning home to get some clothes, she finds the door broken down. Nothing was stolen, just a message, a printed note on the fridge with the words, "I see you," and a smiley face. The invasion is total, physical, digital, psychological. And in the midst of all this chaos, Joey is her safe harbor. He supports her, protects her, offers her his home, his shoulder. He is the hero in the midst of the nightmare. The weeks go by in a blur of fear and uncertainty until one day the detective on the case comes to see her. There is good news and bad news. The good news, they found the stalker. An immense relief washes over Katie. Justice would be served, but the expression on the detective's face is not one of happiness. She explains that the stalker was smart, left almost no trace. But he made one mistake, a single mistake. When he downloaded the photos of the girl from the first fake profile, he forgot to delete the metadata, and that's how the police found him. The detective pauses. The air grows heavy. And then she reveals the stalker's identity, and Katie's world collapses once more. The danger was not just outside, it was inside, all along. Her hero, her protector, the man who comforted her, was the monster who terrorized her. It was Joey. Two stories, two seemingly different scenarios. A security guard confronted with brutality in an isolated place, and a mother terrorized by a threat, hiding in the shadows of the internet, coming from where she least expected. What unites them? The fragility of our perception of security, the certainty that evil exists and that it can manifest itself in the most unexpected ways, in the most unlikely places, and even through the people we trust. The security guard, haunted by the image of those young people, sought refuge in a new life, in a new country, carrying the scar of that night with him. Katie, in turn, had her life turned upside down by someone who disguised himself as a protector, revealing the cruelest face of betrayal. But there is a deep lesson in each of these experiences. Life, in its unpredictability, forces us to confront our deepest fears. It shows us that true security is not in the absence of danger, but in our ability to face it. In the resilience we discover in ourselves when everything seems to fall apart. In the strength we find in our faith, in our values, and in the human connections we build. The security guard, despite the trauma, found a new home and a new hope. Katie, despite the betrayal and terror, survived and will surely emerge stronger, more vigilant, more aware of the complexity of human nature. Perhaps the greatest truth these stories tell us is that we cannot control what happens to us, but we can control how we react. We can choose to be consumed by fear, or we can use adversity as a catalyst for growth. It is an invitation to reflect. What would you do if your bubble of normality burst? Where would you seek strength? What values would guide you? Life is a constant learning process, and sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones that transform us the most. May these stories serve not to frighten us, but to remind us of our own capacity for overcoming, of the importance of trusting our instincts, and of never underestimating the complexity of the human heart. And that, even in the densest shadows, there is always a light of hope to be found if we have the courage to look for it.